Hi, I'm Bill Triber with Artistic Finishes, and today's educational video is going to be called Moldings 101, a basic understanding of the transitions and profiles required to complete a successful floor job. Now, whether you're new or whether you're a long seasoned veteran in the industry, it's always good to do a brusher course, and one of the things you're going to find today is that there's a lot of new options available. And hopefully you'll all learn something. Let's start with the big one, stair nosing. You know, stair nosings are designed to take the brunt of the traffic when going up and down stairwells, staircases. So let's get into the specific components of a stair nosing. Now, stair nosings have been called many different things. Back in the day, when you had 3/4 solid floor, you were looking at a lot of landing tread. Now, these are running 5.5 inches wide, also in thinner thicknesses. We go down to a 1/2 inch, where it gets a little narrower, but still maintains the full radius bullnose on an 1.25 inch sized bullnose. Component of a stair nosing, the bullnosing. Very critical to distinguish the bullnose separate from the face and the majority surface-wise of a stair nosing. The bullnosing can range from being full radius to having a square-edged of a various radius size, this being about a 6mm radius on a square edge front, all the way to some of our adjustable minis in stair nosings that now range up to about an 8mm radius and can be used on surfaces similar in the multi-layer flooring categories for floors of different heights. This just happens to be about an 8mm floor where you can vertically mount those. Overlapping stair nosing. When would that be used? The key term here is floating. If the floor is going to be floated, you're going to most likely be using, not always, but most likely be using overlapping profiles. And of course, stair nosing is one of those that does have the lip available in our profiles in many different sizes for a stair nose to be installed with a floating floor. We also have in the mini collection what we call our LVT, LVP wood profiles, a lot of profiles, and particularly the stair nosings, that are quite innovative. This is a Scribe 2 profile called the 161, which allows us to have a flush stair nosing and still use the bulk of the floor. So that if you're on a step, you see very little bit of the complementary wood. Yet it does follow the manufacturer's recommendations for a 1/4 inch underlayment. It lines up with the face of the profile, but allows the flooring to go over the top and be flush with the radius edge of the bullnose. We do similar profiles in our EnduraCore profile with stair nosings that are flush. We have full radius, and we also have, as I showed earlier, square-edged profiles in flush. But we also have overlapping, where you have a floating floor. That may be a requirement. We have the overlapping stair nose. So the key difference here and the understanding to get, if the floor is floated, it's going to need an overlapping. Unless the manufacturer's recommendation says it's not going to move. You know, some of the new SPCs and the rigid vinyl cores, they're giving wide expansion without a need for movement concern. If that's the case, make sure you know that. Read your manufacturer's instructions and get that down, because if you can put down a flush stair nose, it's going to be a much easier surface to walk on. Longevity-wise, it'll probably outperform something that's overlapping, certainly from a wear factor. So know your installation. We give you the options on all of those. Now let's move on to square nose profiles. Square nose profiles are also referred to in some regions of the country and into Canada as end cap. The key to remember is that they're primarily used to frame an area that does not have a transition surface, similar to fireplaces, doors of a subtly similar height. And I say subtly because I've seen installers use square nosing as reducer. And if you're backing it up next to something of equal height and using the overlap portion of the square nose to come over the top of, say, a floating floor, it would actually work fine as a reducer. But primarily, we want to segregate this into a category where you've got a surface of an unknown height, and say carpet, for example, with a pad and carpet, that would come up somewhat flush to the top of that. We make these in different sizes so that you can accommodate the different height floors. We make them all the way down to even the mini, where you get into the 2.5 millimeter size LVTs and LVPs. Let's move on now to T-moldings. T-moldings have long been one of the staples of the industry. They are used where you have two surfaces, hard surfaces, and I emphasize hard, of equal height. The T-molding should not be used as a reducer. So if you have any discrepancy in height at all, we'll talk about reducers and the versatility of them when we get to that section. But the T-mold should be used where you have two floors of equal height, where you want to have an expansion or a transition that will create a nice finished look. From a function standpoint, it'll allow for any movement. Know what your manufacturer's recommendation is in terms of the distances in the room and or the lengths of the rooms versus the widths. Where you're going to have transitions most typically of T-mold in nature would be through doorways, if you're going into another room. Possibly in a large room where, a manufacturer might say you need to have an expansion joint every 15 to 20 feet. And if you're in a large room, that might be a requirement. So T-molds can be a very versatile tool, but primarily remember hard surface, equal height, and then they will perform admirably. They run all the way up even to the bigger models where you get into the thicker engineered, the solid core engineered wood floors, what have you. And in some cases you may put this over a 3/4 inch floor if you're going into another room and you're concerned about expansion. But typically they're used with floating floors, engineered floors, and floors of lesser height. Okay, next up would be reducer, the last of the big four. Okay, reducers are very, very necessary when completing a job. You're going to have many situations where you have a difference in height from one surface. Say it's a tile floor and you've got a quick set underneath it, and with the tile being 3/8 and the quick set being close to that or maybe a little bit less, you create an unknown discrepancy or total height upon installation that may be unknown until the day that the job is completed. And so therefore the reducer becomes a very critical tool for that situation. We have overlapping, again, where you have floating floor concern, and we have flush. Overlapping reducers in Duracore for all of our rigid vinyl core, the WPC, SPC floors, multi-layer floors, and of course all the way up into 3/4 solids when you get into your flush stair nosings. Primarily are required in a 3/4 world. Okay, reducers, very critical. Now there's a few others that we'd like to mention. Wall base and quarter round and shoe. Know that the only difference between quarter round and shoe is a 1/2 inch by 3/4 versus 3/4 by 3/4 on the quarter round. Hence the name quarter round. 3/4 by 3/4 and shoe. Base shoe would be a little more technical, is a 1/2 inch by 3/4. Now the base shoe is used in primary conjunction with wall base. And wall bases come in many different sizes. You can see here a traditional, what we would call our colonial classic, to contemporaries. Contemporaries can range from 3/4 inches thick to 1/2 inches in thickness. Well, I sure hope this has been educational for you and you've learned a little something. We hope that you will go to our website and on the home page, go into the technical info listed on the top middle section with all the other headers. Click on that and go into the profile dimensions section, which is the first column of listings, along with several other technical information categories, and look at those to get a better understanding of how we categorize them based on thickness. The thickness is one thing that you're going to find that you will need to make sure of. You should have a measuring tool that would accommodate the different abilities to measure floors in different ways for thickness. This happens to be about a $20 tool, and I suggest that you all have one of these if you're going to become a professional and make sure that your moldings are correctly fitted to the job. I want to thank you for being with us today. I look forward to seeing you in the future. Have a good day.